Earlier this year, I made a video about sort of my hack job posture tips for people like me. If you are a small person with small hands. Within the last few months, I've kind of gone through a bit of a posture update. Basically, I changed my posture almost completely. The idea came from watching one of Jasmine Choi's videos. There's that one where she's on a stairwell and she's like playing the Paganini Caprice. Number 24, you know that one? One thing I've always noticed about Jasmine Choi is how confident she looks. Jasmine Choi, if you're watching this, I hope you're not weirded out by this. I really like her posture, but I did not think it was for me. I felt that with her holding up the flute so straight like this, I thought that that looked very tiring. And quite honestly, I just felt like I didn't have that kind of confidence to play the flute like that. But, you know, like I realized how similar in build we are. We're both Asian ladies, relatively small. I think she is a little bit taller than me. I just thought to myself one day, since we have similar builds, I might as well try standing like her and playing the flute like her and see what happens. So now, I'm not saying that any of the stuff that I'm about to talk about is exactly the reason why Jasmine Choi plays the flute the way she does. It's just things that I personally discovered were super helpful about the way that she holds the flute up. I used to play like this, but now I play like this, which is much closer to how she does it. First thing I realized was the only way you can play like this is if you roll your shoulders back. That was a weirdly new concept to me because I had always played the flute kind of with my shoulder blades rolled forward. But if you think about that, that's really bad posture, period. That essentially means that you are slouching. The other thing I noticed from a student that I was teaching was that if you play with your shoulders rolled forward like that, you kind of cave in your chest. He was having issues breathing in enough. The inhaling actually caused a pressure point right here. It actually caused pain. I should have thought of this from before because like all of my workout routines, I follow Blogilates, and Cassie is always saying in her videos like, shoulders rolled back, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why it never occurred to me to do that on the flute. Just rolling the shoulders back radically changed how I hold the flute because you can't keep your shoulder blades rolled back but keep this arm low. You end up like this. This part suddenly gets like super tense right here. So the only way to play with your shoulders rolled back is actually if you hold the flute higher. Ironically, even though you're holding the flute higher, you're actually way more relaxed. I realized I could breathe in more. I actually had better breath control. I think it's because I just wasn't caving everything inward. And I was much quicker to notice how much tension I build over time when I am really trying to learn, you know, a thing of technique, and then I start playing like this again. And then I noticed that with my shoulder blades relaxed, it relaxed my triceps, which relaxed my hands. If you try flexing your triceps, you can see what it does to my hand. Do you see how my whole hand just kind of like spasms? You can actually feel your wrist locking up. So with my shoulders rolled forward, it kind of actually forces your triceps to flex too. That locks up your wrist, which locks up your hands. I just noticed how much looser I was. It offset my timing for all of my technique completely. One of my summer projects is actually reworking my technique completely with this new posture. I was having a lot of fun for a couple of weeks playing my technique super, super light and being like, whoa! But then I noticed that because like essentially holding my flute up like this, the balance is very different from when I used to hold it like this. I noticed that holding the flute up like this, you really are literally propping the flute up with your right thumb much more. You're really not pushing the flute this way anymore, because that's what I used to do. I used to push the flute this way. My thumb is so short, so my thumb can't be under the flute. Jasmine Choi has her thumb under the flute, but mine has to be under the thumb port little extension right here. I'm actually lifting it upward. It's very comfortable to do because your hand is already in this position. It's just literally just kind of sitting on your thumb. My balance, especially going between C and D, completely changed because I realized how much lighter I could be with my fingers, which led me to my next discovery, which was that in my old position, the reason why I had so much trouble going between C and D was because with my shoulder blades rolled forward, it meant that my whole arm was actually bearing down on the keys. So I was actually putting a lot of weight on these top keys here. So every time I let go of them all of a sudden to play C, I would end up rocking the flute back like this because there was so much weight here that to let all of that go, my body instinctually wanted to get my thumb and this hand, my left hand, to rock the flute back. As soon as you let go of all of that, like suddenly there's no more weight, you know, bearing down on the flute. So like that's why you always feel like your flute's rocking back and forth. If you hold the flute up like this and you're actually just lifting it, all the lifting action is happening here, which means that you're not putting any weight on the keys up here anymore. So you can just kind of go like this without moving the flute around. It's kind of freaking amazing. I left that problem as like a problem that I would have for the rest of my life. I thought it was just because I have small hands, therefore I'm never going to be able to balance the flute correctly. So that's just one of the things that I have to live with. I just need to play C to D fast enough that you can't see me rocking the flute. It's like just kind of learning to live with something that actually is fixable, but you didn't know was fixable. I had completely given up looking for a solution for it, but I just accidentally happened to come across this solution when I was trying out how Jasmine Choi was playing. It has changed my life. It's amazing that I can do this right now completely effortlessly. That's ridiculous. Oh, it's taken me so long. I've realized, yes, it's still true that depending on your body and depending on your build, the way you hold the flute is not gonna look exactly like someone else. But I noticed that the common denominator that seems to work for me and for my students after I have observed Jasmine Choi, as long as you roll your shoulder blades back, it kind of forces everything into a position that actually works for you. Oh, guys, this feels so nice. I have gone far too many years of playing the flute with my upper back like completely tense. That's not good for playing fast. I think this is how Jasmine Choi plays so fast. It's because she's so relaxed. The looser you are, the smoother you'll play and the faster you can play. If you hold any tension anywhere, you can't go fast. And if you try to, that's where you will injure yourself. To me, technique used to be only like learning patterns and memorizing patterns. But what technique has become for me now is a study on my own posture. It's not just boring exercises that you have to memorize. It really is a self-reflection and like a hyper self-awareness of what you're doing with your body. It's made my technique practice a lot more interesting to me. I really used to hate technique because it was always so freaking boring because it's always the same thing over and over again. You always kind of felt like you're going in circles. Musically, it's not very interesting. But now I love how they're very concentrated little bite-sized pieces. So your brain isn't preoccupied with style, expression, and stuff like that. You really have like your own dedicated space to study how your body is playing the flute. It's very much like yoga. It's very much like a meditative process. I did not expect to do a posture update so quickly after making that video. So yes, I completely eat my words of some of the things that I mentioned in that video that worked for me then. That video, I'm leaving it up more for historical purposes, just so you guys can see my growth since then. I'm even noticing that like the pinky issue that I mentioned in that video, with the way that I'm holding this, ironically, because my fingers are no longer bearing down on the keys, I notice that it's easier to hold them higher over the keys. And when you hold your fingers higher over the keys, you can reach the pinky keys way more easily. I can even reach the gizmo no problem now, just from playing like this. Your fingers then have no more tension and they can totally just like reach everywhere. They're so far rotated above the keys for more leverage now that I can't even align my foot joint the way I used to. So I used to align my foot joint with the rod halfway between the open holes here, but now the rod is aligned to the top of the open holes. Like if you're looking at it this way, it's the top of the open holes. I've actually rolled my foot joint further out now, which I never thought I would ever do. I'm no longer having to grip the flute like this and put all the weight down like this. Now I have the freedom of just kind of like stretching over the keys more than I ever could before. Like, it's so much easier now. However, I did have to, like, because my fingers are rotated more over the keys, I found that I'm actually covering the holes in slightly different positions on my middle finger and on my ring finger. Whereas before, I had the middle of the tip of my fingers here covering the hole. Now on my middle finger, it's a little bit to my right, so it's rotated a bit here. My ring finger is like almost like 45-degree angle against the key. And that's just because my fingers are small. So actually a lot more comfortable that way. I did wait a while to make this video because it was a lot of changes that I had to make. And so it took a while for that to become my new normal. I love it. I can play the flute longer now. I have less tension. I'm less tight up here. I don't get tired as easily. I can play things faster, longer. It's just great. A lot of good things came out of this. So Jasmine Choi, if you are watching this, thank you so much for making my life and my students' lives so much better. I'm not sure how much of what I said in this video is truly what you do, but thank you for being an inspiration nonetheless. I hope this is helpful for you flutists out there who have the same issue as me. That's it for today. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.